comfortable in these vehicles. In fact, FCA, or Stellantis now, uses these things on press trips to ferry around journalists because they're so usable. I told you, you fucking cocksucker! Get the fuck off the road!
I don't have a lot of time, neither do you, and I have to pick up my dad's girlfriend from the nursing home yet again. Here's the highlights. This is just like the plug-in hybrid that we did a video on and the original launch minivan, except they've added new infotainment and all-wheel drive for a V6. But let's get into this. They spent over $1 billion on this. $1 billion in terms of development. That's because they had to update a factory in Canada. This entire van is boutique. It's not shared with a bunch of other products. That's why it feels more special. It's quiet, it's refined, it's comfortable, it drives more like a car, less like a bus or a van. It feels less of a shit box than like the old Caravan did. It's way more refined, so you can scrub your idea of the minivan out of this. Now, Toyota is trying to say minivan's a dirty word because people are so phobic of it. Kia is getting rid of the minivan name on their new Carnival and calling it an MPV again. So you know what this is. And when you look at the outside, you look at the paint color, you look at how it is, it's one of the best looking vans on the market. And the interior space follows that. If you are a woman also and you're phobic of this, just know that the lead engineer behind the design or behind this project was a woman as well. And that is extremely rare in the automotive universe. So if that doesn't do it for you, what else do we talk about? This has some of the best seating configuration of anything in the planet for a consumer vehicle. The seats fold down easily, stupid simple. They go into the floor. The back seats are great. You can use the third row. The cargo space behind the back seats is amazing. Every nook and cranny in here is designed to load it up full of trash. I have Popeyes everywhere, and I still don't feel like I'm in a garbage can. The big thing is technology. This is one of the first vehicles to get Android Automotive, which is a pure Android OS for a car. It's not a hacked up version like other manufacturers are doing, and this is going to become more prevalent. The benefit is it acts more like a smartphone UI. It's quick, it's easy to use, and you get over-the-air updates from Google, which patch some of the security risks that we worry about in the tech field. Now, everything else is basically what we talked about before. I will say, there's little things that they've carried over that are negative, like the steering wheel has this metal on it in the winter. It's freezing even with the heated steering wheel. And, the knobs, buttons, and switches are laid out in a way. There's a lot of circular knobs here, so you might confuse like the fan knob for the volume knob and the drive mode selector. There's subtle things that, you're just going to get used to owning this. Let's head into the shop and talk about the all-wheel drive system. This is my third time underneath the Pacifica. The first time I saw it was with Scott, bless his heart, and he had told me if he didn't tell me what he was under, he would never have guessed it was a Pacifica or a Chrysler minivan because it is so vastly different and improved from all the previous generation minivans. So the highlights here is there's a lot of aluminum for weight savings. There is an enormous effort placed on underbody NVH paneling and airflow panels, which reduce drag, which you would never know on this car because the fuel economy is pretty low, but it does quiet everything down. There's isolators, rubber isolators, and mounts to help reduce vibration from the start-stop process and just overall vibration in the cabin. So again, like I talked about in the interior, this is a broken record. It feels way more refined than what you'd expect. Now the big change here, while you're watching this, they've added all-wheel drive to a V6. Now we tested this Pentastar V6 with the Charger Challenger all-wheel drive setup, which was rear-wheel drive. Now this isn't a front-wheel drive layout, so it always propels the front wheels and then sends power to the back through the on-demand system, which makes this far more usable in the winter, as we found out, or in areas where you don't have a perfect climate year-round. Now, as we see climate change in many parts of at least the United States, you're getting colder weather and even snow farther down south. So this may be something super important to you, and you still have horsepower from the V6, which is something that Toyota is getting rid of in favor of a hybrid. Now, I'm not going to bore you with much else other than this does look really good under here, and we could argue longevity, and I know this is a sore topic for this brand. If you're really, really worried about it, it's one of those you want to get new. You want to get a warranty or an extended warranty if you plan on keeping this. But let's get this out on the road and see how it drives.
How's your blood pressure?
Trent, I had to go pick him up from school today. He's throwing boogers in class, Jack. And that sums up my life with the all-wheel drive Chrysler Pacifica
S.
This, like I discussed during the interior impressions, I lusted for this van, and then I didn't buy it. But then again, the all-wheel drive version was not out. Since we've discussed the hybrid, plug-in, and the original V6, it's time to talk about the AWD.
I think the first thing to talk about is minivans. You and I both prefer them to most generic SUV, CUVs, because in reality, they're far more usable. If you need to carry things or people, you don't have to compromise.
I was f***ing first, you f***er!
The reality of the minivan is, unlike a CUV or an SUV, you don't have to compromise on things like cargo capacity and people hauling ability. And for many reasons, those reasons specifically, we prefer these things most of the time. And the fact that this is actually low down to the ground, it largely drives like a front-wheel drive biased all-wheel car.
Yeah, it does. It does. It really does. And I think in the winter, that's where you notice it the most. You still have the V6 power, and you have the capability of getting through some nasty stuff, and the all-wheel drive system, instead of washing out like the front-wheel drive version did, it does pull you through much better. And I had this a little bit in the damp, and it is cold. And I would say, if you're in a bad conditions, if you're in a really bad environment, winters, hills, mountainous areas where you need to get through stuff, this fixes all the problems with the original van. It's just gets down to the negatives, which to me is the fuel economy. I'm barely getting 19, and right now we're getting 17, but we've had a lot of idling. But you know, in the cold at least, it's low 20s, high teens, and that sucks.
This is where it loses out to something like the Sienna. Where it makes up for it, though, is styling. And I think the other part of it, too, is driving dynamics. The fact that this has a real gearbox with physical gears. Mm-hmm. It looks the way it does, and yes, it's a minivan, but at least it looks good.
No, it does. In this color, we joked around. I had it parked next to some Porsches and that GTR. Mm-hmm. This color is incredible on here. Yeah. You know, you could argue paint quality and clear coat and orange peel and all that, but really, between the black of the S package and this paint color, it really gives it a ton of character. It is by far the most, or least controversial looking minivan that's out there.
It looks good. It has a V6, and the Pentastar V6 is actually very good.
It's good. Really quick. It's perfectly suited for this. It's smooth. It has good induction noise. The only thing I will say that I've noticed is the transmission. And a lot of people don't think about this driving a van, but I've noticed times where if you're in the middle of a corner, you're trying to get out, merging, the way that they have the, I don't know, it's torque converter tuning, but it will, in between gears, it kind of holds. It has this hold before a shift, and it gives you this like lurching feeling. Mm-hmm. Instead of just kind of shifting and smoothly engaging the gears, it's like up and then disconnect, and there's like, then it's
almost feels like gear shock.
It does feel like gear shock, but it's this lag delay that comes from it. I know it's purposely tuned that way, but it's, to me, I notice it, and sometimes I think like there's something wrong with it. But
I'd rather take, albeit a slightly flawed, traditional gearbox to to the CVT that's in the Sienna.
Yeah, I would say that. If you prefer driving, if you like the driving experience, this is the best driving minivan. Now, granted, we haven't been in the Carnival, but we know exactly what they're doing with that. It's going to be a Telluride-esque type experience.
That's front-wheel drive.
Front-wheel drive, ultra-like, cushy, couch-like, and just a snooze fest. So at least I enjoyed driving this.
I do. If you were only going to buy this thing to keep for like 4 or 5 years, and this is, you talked about in the shop, the reliability concerns of Stellantis as a brand, given the last J.D. Power survey, do you keep some of this in question? But if you were going to keep it within the warranty period, and you were going to move on after that, get the next one, or replace the vehicle, this is the one I would own, I think, in this segment right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then kind of the last thing to say is you could just forget about reliability, forget all about that. But this is one Chrysler, or, you know, the people who did this, it doesn't feel like they phoned it in. Mm-hmm. It really does feel like they spent a lot of effort and time in it, and that's why it's one of my favorite minivans for that regard. It just does everything so completely well that I always get excited to drive this thing. So let's get into the final thoughts, Jack.
Yeah, let's do it.
Final thoughts on the Pacifica all-wheel drive. Chrysler is unapologetic about something. It's a minivan, and I'm going to force you to look at it. Take a look at the paint, the blacked out badges, the blacked out wheels. It looks good for its intended purpose. It's not trying to be anything else. And if you have a little bit of fun with that stigma, like we do, and you embrace the fact that cars generally are not cool, and SUVs are not any cooler than minivans because there's a kajillion of them, they're all the same thing, and you have multiple children, you have hauling purposes, and you go in here and you don't have to fight with doors that don't open far enough. You don't have to move seats forward and back every time you get a kid in, or you're fighting with a car seat. You don't have to do that in here. Just accept it. And if you can, you're going to have one of the best vans on the market. Now, there are some negative things, and I'm not going to lie. Yes, quality, reliability, all of that, I hear endlessly from the people I recommend this to. I've had people that bought the van because they said it's great, and then they've had problems with it. And I can't control that. All I can tell you is get a friggin' warranty, trade this thing in when the warranty's up, enjoy it while you can, try not to lose your ass when you buy this new if you're gonna do that. This is around $55,000 new. And that's crazy, but that's what the other high-end vans are as well. And you don't have to have all those features, of course. You can get this way cheaper than that. But, you know, as a whole, adding all-wheel drive gives you a big advantage. You still have a V6. Granted, the fuel economy is not the best, but if you're in a bad area, a bad climate, now this becomes usable all year round with no fear. With the right tires on it, it really does tear it up. And I'm just going to leave that at that for now. I've talked about this van endlessly on the other videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.